We are Theater.
There you go.
There you go. Right? There you go. It's nice to have things automated like that.
How are you, DJ?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, John?
I'm good. It's February and it's award season.
Yeah. Yeah, so where did you come from? BAFTA? What was it?
I just came from BAFTA, and it was a screening and party reception to celebrate the 5 nominees for short films this year that are in the category for a BAFTA award. And my favourite and my tip, which probably won't win, is Milk, which was an incredible film by Miranda. I'm trying to think of her other name. Miranda Stern, was it? I think Miranda Stern.
Okay.
And then there was another film which was Mario, which is about a woman who's a bull jumper. That's actually executive produced by Kate Blanchett and Sienna Miller.
Is that another term for like bullfighter? Instead of calling them fighters, they call them jumpers now.
Well, no, she's a bullfighter, but actually they physically jump over the bulls. It's like watching this kind of video game.
Really?
They literally do like some kind of Tom Cruise super move and jump over this bull. It's like they're like acrobatic feats are incredible.
Oh, wow.
And this woman is the only female bull jumper in the world.
The only female bull. That's hard to believe. Just one? One in the world. That's all they got.
This is what this film implies. It's the only one in the world.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, it does take a modest amount of stupidity to fight bulls and jump bulls. So,
yes.
Being the more intelligent of the genders,
what is fascinating?
You got to figure there's only one of them.
But what is fascinating in the short film world, which are very expensive calling cards for people who are going to become potential filmmakers, is the need now to have a A-list celebrity or filmmaker attached to the film as a producer. Like I saw an incredible film that's probably going to win the Oscar for Best Documentary short called Drowning by Numbers, which is a very, very powerful film about a woman who survived one of the high school shootings and has to face her shooter in court. It's one of the few times that actually somebody has to face the shooter in court, because normally they either get killed or kill themselves.
Right.
But this guy was such a complete coward that he couldn't do anything decent like that. So having shot this woman 4 times or 5 times, she still survived, and the whole film is based around her testimony. But our dear good friend Frank Marshall is the executive producer on that, as in Frank Marshall is behind Jurassic Park or Jurassic World that's just about to come out, and the majority of Spielberg's greatest movies, and also a very credible director in Congo and Arachnophobia.
Congo. Oh, man. I haven't seen that in forever. Yeah, Michael Crichton, another Michael Crichton.
Yes. And so there's this sort of, and there's another short film, an Irish one I saw recently, which is it wasn't actually nominated for an Oscar, but it was potential. And Colin Farrell was the executive producer on it.
Oh, wow.
So, so that's the latest thing. It's like the sort of, if you're A-lister, you want to help the next generation of talent into the movie world, you associate yourselves with a short film.
Be an executive producer or something, get your name on it, and
yeah, but it gets you a lot of
notoriety,
and it sort of gets you up there. And I mean, I think possibly one of the reasons that Death by Numbers was nominated was because of Frank Marshall. I mean, it's an incredibly powerful film, but I think Frank Marshall got it a lot of attention. So that's what I was doing this evening. I was at this lovely reception, met the lovely director Miranda, who directed this film Milk, which a very powerful short, which I understand all the films will be on the BAFTA YouTube website, so you can actually watch all these short films if you want to.
Oh, wow.
And we had a great time. A great time was had by all.
Nice. And you did, if I remember right, you did fairly well in your voting last year.
Yes,
A lot of what you vote for ended up winning, correct?
Yes. I mean, I was following the trend. This year, my business partner is helping. She's helping me with my voting credentials because she's an avid film watcher, and she's very, very on the money. So I've liaised with her because her knowledge is a lot greater than mine, and she's seen a lot more of the films than I have.
Oh wow! Jeez, there you go.
Yeah.
So when do you have to have all your votes in by?
BAFTA, I think, is Tuesday next week. I think it is Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember. The 11th, which is Monday, isn't it? Monday the 11th or Tuesday the 11th?
Okay.
And I think the Academy is the 20 something or other. It's the end of this month.
Really, the 20th? When are the Oscars? They're in March, aren't they?
No, March. God, I can't remember. This is like I'm flagging here of knowing the BAFTA Awards are a week Sunday. Let's just double check the.
So the BAFTAs. So you have to have them in by the 11th.
By the 11th, and the Oscars are. God,
11th, and then BAFTA Awards are on the 16th.
Yeah, 16th. Wow. Yeah, so they have.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Look, I will just tell you what all the dates. I've got a list of the dates here on there. Everybody just start. 2nd of March. Sunday, 2nd of March is the Oscars, which is away. So it's only like 2 weeks of the thing, and I think it's the. Hang on.
So you if you have to have them in by the 20th, even that's a Thursday. It's literally a week before.
Yeah. So.
Well, just over a week before. Wow. What's your favorite? What's your favorite for the year so far? What do you think you're going for? Like movie of the year.
The great film, the Bob Dylan film, A Complete Unknown. I think that's possibly gonna storm it because it's very, very good. I mean, it's Timothy Chalamet is incredible. Jimmy Mangold is an incredible director and he's done an incredible job there. It's a great film. It's a film that has to be seen there with exceptional sound and really good picture. Because if it doesn't really work because it's a film about music and sound.
Right.
And there's a lot of a lot of sound effect gags in the film as well, which most people probably didn't get unless you were listening on a really good system, and then you could sort of understand the gags, particularly the coffee pot gag, which is quite good. Conclave, I think, is a interesting film that probably will, might get some attention. The Brutalist, I think, is an absolute work of genius, as incredible. But I think probably A Complete Unknown is probably gonna nudge it because the marketing budget and everything behind A Complete Unknown is astronomical compared to The Brutalist, which is an A24 release in America, which is not a negative, but it's just that they haven't got the same influence that Disney's got with A Complete Unknown.
Okay.
I think the Brutalist to do well. I mean, I'd like it to win. Brady, who directed it, is a fascinating young guy. So I think he's like 36, 37. Canadian originally, now lives in Austin. Written by him and his wife. Nearly 4 hours long. Has a 15-minute interval in the middle of it. Adrian Brody's performance of his life. It's a film that's definitely worth seeing. Particularly if you've got the stamina to last nearly 4 hours of it.
I think I'm looking at the list right here. I've only seen Dune Part 2 and Wicked so far.
Yeah.
Of Best Pictures. Best Picture.
Which would be interesting. I mean, Wicked is fascinating. It's doing really well, but I don't think it's going to win probably awards. Probably. I mean, Alice Brooks, who did the cinematography, she did an amazing job on that. It looks beautiful. It really is a great film in that respect. I think things like visual effects, costume, hair and makeup.
Yeah.
All the technical craft awards, cinematography, editing, possibly.
It's not even up for cinematography.
Well,
Nosferatu, Maria, Amelia Perez, Dune, and The Brutalist.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was getting confused. I was at the BSC Awards the other night.
It's up for costume, though. Yeah. It's up for costume. Yep.
Yeah, but it was up at the BSC Awards, so I'm getting confused. But yeah, The Brutalist by Lol Crawley. I mean, he's an incredible cinematographer. He's done an amazing job in that film. I mean, you have to get over the slight hype of it being shot on VistaVision and in 70mm, because that really doesn't add anything to it. Because if you're watching it digitally, it's not really gonna, it's just a marketing gimmick. But actually, his cinematography is incredible, and it looks great. It works, and it tells the story. What are the other nominees? Sorry, you're just saying there's...
For which one? For cinematography? Cinematography would be, let's see, where did it go? Music. I'm scrolling back and forth to all of them. Directing, costume, cinematography, where The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu.
Okay, well, I know Greg Fraser, who did Dune Part 2, is, I mean, he's a potential for winning because he's a legend. He's an absolute legend. Now, Nosferatu is interesting because that's a young guy, and I'm trying to think of his name. I've forgotten his name already, which is not good. Does it say on your list what his name is? It's
for cinematography.
Nosferatu.
Jarin.
Jarin. Yes, Jarin he's also quite young as well. He's only in his late 30s, early 40s. And Nosferatu is very good visually. It is stunning. So there's a lot of potential for those films to win awards there, particularly Nosferatu. But I think it's probably between The Brutalist and Dune Part 2
for cinematography.
Yeah. And then what else? If you look, what have we got for editing?
Let's see. Editing was a little after cinematography, costume, directing, film editing. Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, and Wicked.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Conclave's an interesting film because that's The Outsider. That's a very interesting film. I quite liked it. It's one of those films. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It's sort of a whodunit. It's a whodunit in the Vatican.
Yeah.
Oddly enough,
when you're voting for like film editing, for instance, right? Since I have you here, what do you look for? Like, how do you vote? Like, good film editing? Like, is there bad cuts, bad jump? Like, what? Like creativity? What is it?
An editor tells the story. An editor takes
exactly. I know.
And he tells the story. So it's whether or not the story is. It's amazing. You can watch a rough cut of a film and it doesn't work. It's horrendous. You go, God, it's like too long. The editor can go back in, fine tune it, and then suddenly it'll sing. And that's the key. Yeah. It's like literally, but also how you place stuff in the order of how you put the scenes together. Because you can
take Pulp Fiction first.
That was like the sort of film that sort of really sort of inspired the nonlinear editing approach. And it was very good. I mean, Steve Soderbergh then ran with it to the point. I mean, if you've ever seen the film The Limey that he directed, I mean, The Limey is just complete non-linear editing. It's like literally Terence Stamp's thoughts as he's sitting on the plane, and it's in a random order.
Jeez.
And I
haven't seen that. What was the other the one that's backwards? Memento?
Memento, yes.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's Chris Nolan's second film after The Following. I mean that is quite something. I mean, Guy Pearce, Guy Pearce is in The Brutalist. I mean, Guy Pearce is a very, very interesting actor. So
loved him in Iron Man 3.
Yes.
It's like, Everybody right now is like, oh, come on, Deej. We're talking Oscars here. Iron Man 3.
Yeah. But
But-
yeah, it's
Yeah, it always when I see stuff like that, like film editing, like how, like, what do you, like, when people are voting on that, do they go by like how well the movie worked? They actually go to like people like yourself. Are you able to look at that and go, wow, that was a masterful piece of editing there? Like,
well, if you look at it's like anything. If you notice it, you know it's not working. So, like, literally, The Brutalist.
right.
It's 2 hours. I watched the first. I mean, The Brutalist was weird because it started off and I was like, "What the hell is this all about? This is a bit random." And then suddenly I realized what the hell Brody was doing, and it's like masterful because literally he's the Brutalist is the king of the long takes, which is something that Jonathan Glazer did in his film Birth, which is like, it's a thing that Kubrick was also a master of, is that you run the shot really, really long, and it doesn't seem like it's long, and also you get to a point where actually you start to enjoy it, and The Brutalist does that. And then that's actually interesting because it means the editing is a lot harder. It's a lot harder because where'd you cut it because you're running it long,
Right.
and you're looking yourself into certain elements, and you have to really have really good actors. And this is the thing certainly about The Brutalist is the acting performance is exceptional. Is absolutely exceptional. You're so engaged with it, you don't think about anything else. You're watching the film. You're concerned with the outcome of the character. You know, I mean, that's the beauty of cinema. You forget about your world you live in for like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Right.
You're transported into another world, and what you're worried about is the outcome of that character. What's happening to that person?
Right.
And you've switched off. I mean, it's actually very good for you to switch off. What is interesting is like the two of the people I met this evening, two of the directors, and what they both said. And I said, "Oh, why did you get into filmmaking?" I mean, Miranda, her film Milk is basically about her journey about getting off heroin. And I said, "What was your driver to get off heroin?" And she said, "Cinema. Cinema saved my life."
Oh, wow.
The absolute sort of like beauty and immersiveness of cinema and the ability to tell stories, actually that was her driver, not to be on heroin anymore. And I thought that's amazing. And also another guy who directed one of the short films this evening, I said, "Well, what was your driver?" He said, "Well, cinema. Yeah, cinema is what made me become what I am." And I think that's for many people, that cinema is this incredible thing that we all love and we all enjoy, and it takes us to another world.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was just telling a friend of mine today about myself and growing up, and I used to watch, as everybody knows, I watch Star Wars a lot, but I like to watch movies over and over. And it's comforting to me. And then when I went to college, I took a bunch of psychology classes, and one of them being child psychology. And I learned in child psych that, like, why babies, like infants, like to watch the same thing over and over, going way, way back to even mobiles. Before we had TVs and stuff, you'd put a mobile above the bed and it would do the same pattern, and it's comforting. That's why the baby would fall asleep, because babies are constantly, their senses are taking in brand new information 24/7 because they don't know anything. They don't know the world yet, right? So anything that they know is comforting to them. Okay. So when like now we have TVs, and a baby will put on Sesame Street or in Big Bird, or even just like when my kids were little, you put on those little, it's just solid primary colors, a block bouncing around the screen. And it's soothing to the baby because even an infant's mind wants to feel like it knows something, right? Okay, I get this. I can relax now. Okay. It's not being bombarded with new information. So I'm learning this in child psych, and I'm like, what the hell? That's me. Like, I sit down and I watch Star Wars, and I'm like, because I'm not getting new information in. And this was back in the 80s before I knew I've been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and all this other stuff, and my mind bouncing all over the place. And for the same idea, I think, like what you were saying, like, I know I didn't go to heroin, but movies are soothing. They can be like, when you first see a movie, like you said, it transports you to another place. You can watch them over and over, like I do, and it it's comforting. It's soothing. It's a way to relax. I literally will go in my theater, not right now with a concussion, but I'll go in my theater at reference level and put on Star Wars and take a nap. Yeah. Like at reference level, people come in and go, how is he sleeping? It's like all that noise, but it's comforting, you know?
Well, Star Wars is fascinating because I don't think there'll ever be another film like it in history, because the film changed the paradigm. It changed the world. It changed so many people's lives. It changed my life. It changed your life. I mean, the whole thing has changed so many people's perception and understanding and outlook on what they wanted to be in life. It did it in such a way that just literally was very good. It wasn't negative. It wasn't a negative experience. It was a very positive experience. And I mean, I think you're right. I mean, ADHD is I have ADHD. You have ADHD. It's like, it's probably the reason.
Our conversations.
We're friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like so many people have ADHD, and it's like they don't realize and they can't understand why they bounce from one thing to the other. They can't finish tasks. They can't. They can't focus on things. They've got a load of uncompleted projects. And it's once you start to understand what your problems are and what the situation is, it doesn't become a problem. It becomes a superpower because you actually train it to your advantage.
Yes. It really is one of the things. I mean, for me, it's like I see people now when they're raising their kids and they're trying to get their kid to do well in school and they help them with all of their work. It's like, I want them to get good grades. And I'm like, no, if they're going to fail, you want that because they're going to find their way. And that's what happened with me. It's like I knew what was difficult for me to do. And even like I'm 54 years old, and it wasn't until I was like 51 where I actually got a legit diagnosis. It's like up until then, it was just like, my mom was like, we didn't know back then. Nobody, they were like, he's just, if he could just buckle down and concentrate. Okay. But I couldn't. And it's, but you find your way. And it's like, look at the job that I have now. I go to a different place every day. I'm painting different cars all the time. It's really like, you figure out for yourself what your strengths and more importantly, what your weaknesses are, and you stay away from them. Right. Yeah. It's like the worst thing somebody could tell you is you could be anything you want to be, no matter, just work hard at it. Well, no, because you might not be good. And it's like, you want to be something and it seems like a good idea, but you might not be good at that. So, if you fail at it, move on to something else. And it's, to me, that's what's important. And it's, just same in home theater. It's like you build in your room, you have a budget, you have this. It's like, do what you're good at and the rest will come later, Well, I think home theater is an amazing concept because really what people are doing is building a safe space for themselves, a space that escape to somewhere else. And they want, they want to have a room that they can leave their earthly problems behind and transport to somewhere else. Yeah.
I mean, it's as much as I love cinema, it's like home cinema is now the new, it's almost like the new temple in the home. You've created your own place of worship where you worship the screen. I always used to refer to cinema as my church. And like home cinema is very much like you've created something in your house of the same thing. And it's like
especially if you put on 10 Commandments.
Yes. the amazingness of like the ability to transport you elsewhere. And what I find fascinating is that the quality we're now getting at home is just literally off the charts. I mean, this is where we come on to like the Kaleidoscape and the new Kaleidoscape Strato V. I mean, is just. I mean, I'm a massive fan of physical media. I love physical media, and I don't want to see it disappear and decline. But I can see that things like the Strato V, I can see where that will then take it to the next level. Because disc isn't changing; it's not going to get any better. Whereas the Strato, for example, I mean,
well, it's limited by capacity, right? That's what disc's limited by. Whereas a system like a Kaleidoscape, and I think in the future there'll be more systems like Kaleidoscape, just not not as advanced. Not I shouldn't say as advanced. I mean, because you have Plex, you have other things, but there'll be other ways to do it. It just won't be. It won't have all the it won't be as streamlined and as high a quality, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Well, the beauty of Kaleidoscope is it's just simple. It's just literally.
Well, yeah.
It's not cheap, but it's also not. It's also simple. It's just you don't have to worry about anything. It's like you plug it in. As long as the account's set up and you've got your credit card details in there, you can start buying movies.
Yeah.
And it's not streaming it; it's downloading it to its own internal drive, and then it's playing it back locally. So
right.
It's interesting. I've done a lot of comparisons between some of the very best 4K disc players, and I have to say that the Strato V leaves it standing. And I think the reason being,
you know what I think is fun. All right, go ahead. You say that. I can't wait to tell people our history.
The reason is I think that there's no transport between it. You're just playing back the bits. It's like it's already in there. It's just the bits you're playing back. Whereas a disc, the laser's got to read the bits. You got to decode what the bits are. You got to then turn it into something that can actually then be secondarily decoded into a video stream and an audio stream, and then it's all these potential through the thing where you get errors in the system, because disk-based systems are always using very heavily forward-based error correction systems. There's probably forward error correction in the Strato V, but there really is probably not being used, because it's like using a solid-state hard drive, which is virtually has an error probably like every 20 hours or something, which is like one error every 20 hours, which is like, if you could see it, you're a genius. It's like you're beyond a genius. So literally there's virtually no errors. And I think that's why it's like just a lot more solid, a lot more, it just has it just looks a lot more impactful. I've played the same file off disk and I've played the same file off the Strato, and literally the Strato just leaves it standing, even though roughly it's about the same bit rate as well. The beauty of the Strato is obviously you can up the bit rate, and obviously that's the thing, they can start doing a lot higher bit rates. Which is its advantage. And also, like something like film like The Brutalist, I'm hoping that A24 are going to put it on 2 discs, because there's no way they're going to put a 4-hour film on 1 disc. That would just be suicide.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got a natural intermission in it, so they can break it onto 2 discs. But I mean, on the Kaleidoscope, it's not going to be an issue, because it's just a big file. It's not limited being 100 gigs on each disc. You could have a 400 gig file if you wanted to.
Right. It just plays right through. Same with, like I just did back at Christmas, I did the Lord of the Rings trilogy, all 3 of them, and the extended cut. And on Kaleidoscape, it's just one run all the way through. Whereas the discs, those are all 2 disc sets.
Yeah.
They don't, because you can't fit those, because they're almost 4 hours. One of them is like, I think it is 4 hours, but it's like 40 minutes of credits or something like that, something ridiculous. But yeah, that's the other advantage of the Kaleidoscape, is it's just one solid run.
Well, I mean, also as well, the Kaleidoscope uses a different color encoding system than with its Dolby Vision than the disc players do. So it's a next generation color encoding system, which means has a lot more range than the old effectively component video that discs are encoded in. I mean, they're literally the system that 4K discs are using for its color space, the 4220 color space, goes back to the 1980s. Whereas the Strato V uses a color encoding system that was basically developed about 2 years ago. Okay.
So you're saying, how does that, what does that mean? Like, does that mean like the discs that just, you're not getting the same range of color? Because everybody's, you're talking Rec 2020, you're talking, I mean, what's the difference there?
It's a bit fuzzy how you define it, because there's no hard defined way. But what it means is that on a 4K disc, if you're using full Dolby Vision on a disc, you're getting 12 bits out of it. But that's 12 bits 422. Whereas the Strato V, the way it's doing it, it's basically 10 bits will roughly give you 11 or 12 bits of the same range, because of the way it's encoded. So it's a lot more efficient.
Oh, okay.
So it uses Profile 5. The Strato disc players use Profile 7, which doesn't mean it's better. It just happens to be the name of it, Profile 7. So displays use Profile 7 for Dolby Vision, and there's two versions of Dolby Vision on disc. There's MEL and FEL. And basically, the reason they came out with the two versions is that MEL is for encoding TV content, and FEL is designed for encoding cinema content to try and give you the most accurate cinema thing. Now, it's interesting that some of the companies recently obviously have been encoding the discs in MEL, which is effectively TV version. But there is a huge difference on disc anyway, between a MEL and a FEL version if it's done properly. And it is interesting that literally if you take some of the stuff that's been released by certain well-known collectible labels, and then you take stuff that's done by the Criterion Collection, because the Criterion Collection always do it to the very best. And you can take the same film that, say, had a European release that's in 10-bit MEL, and then you'll take the American Criterion version of it, which is in 12-bit FEL, and it's night and day, absolutely night and day. Classic example of that is it's actually not even in Dolby Vision. The David Bowie film, Moon Age Daydreams. Moon Age Daydreams looks, the Universal European release is almost unwatchable. It's like it looks like, but you look at the Criterion version, and it's like the sound is so much better on the Criterion version. It's not dynamically compressed. It's literally almost as good as you get on the DCP, whereas the Universal European release is horrible. And this is the thing. It's like, where you buy your films now, where you get your films from, there's going to be a huge difference. It doesn't necessarily mean, just because you've got a copy of it on 4K doesn't mean it's going to be the best version of it. You've got to work out now which is the best version of it, which is what I like about the Kaleidoscope, is that literally they're guaranteeing you have the best version
somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I said I started doing everything after talking with Jim at Cedia, talking with you, and learning about Dolby Vision and all that MEL and FEL and all the different levels of. I'm like, I'm just doing everything in Dolby Vision. Yeah. And it's now that I know I'm getting the best possible. It might not be, whatever particular movie might not have the best version of Dolby Vision, but it's better. I'm not one to start going, well, what about this and this? If you put it in, HDR10, that's fine. But that's better than this one on Dolby Vision. And I don't get into that. I just rather, the odds are you're going to get the best version with the Dolby Vision. So that's what I'm going to go with. Consistently.
Yeah, I mean, if it's encoded properly, like the Long Good Friday is a classic example. The Criterion version of the Long Good Friday knocks 7 bells out of any other version of it. It is literally night and day. It's like, it's like 4K, and the other version is good, but it's not quite it looks video. If you do a comparison, the other version looks video, and then you look at the Criterion version, and the Criterion version just looks like cinema. And you go, okay, it looks very natural, very realistic. And it's just down to the attention to detail of how you're doing it and how you're encoding it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dolby Vision. We work very closely with Dolby, and I know all the guys at Dolby are involved in that whole process. And, it's how it should be. Literally, Dolby Vision is how it should be. The story, I'll tell you, I don't mind embarrassing Samsung, because it's like their own fault, because they were being really stupid. But originally, Dolby Vision was the de facto standard for 4K discs and 4K broadcast and, not broadcast necessarily, but 4K streaming. And Samsung turned around and went, we're not going to pay the royalty. We need a thing. So Dolby then had to dismantle its own system and take out the bits that weren't proprietary. And create HDR10, which is just literally, a slight nonsense. And it obviously didn't work, HDR10, because then within 2 years, Samsung had come up with HDR10 Plus, which was yet again another, compromise on Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision was from day one devised and designed to work properly in the 4K environment to give you the best results. The whole idea of FEL on 4K discs was to give you a reproduction of a studio master. Okay. So suddenly throw that all out the window was very silly of Samsung. you know, and literally, I mean, for the sake of probably only $1 or so per television, that's what Samsung were probably bulking about. Which obviously, on the amount of televisions they make a year, is probably quite a lot of $700 million. But again, it's like, well, they've given the consumer a poor quality on trying to compromise on costs because their own sort of ego.
Is it ego, or is it also basically trying to be competitive in the market, right? Like pushing Dolby Vision. Like I look at stuff like that, and I'm not saying it's not ego. I'm not saying they're not, I mean, it is business too. But as a consumer, don't we benefit from people trying to do something so that way it's not like a monopoly, like Dolby? Everything's Dolby Vision has to be, and now they just basically own the world.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it like that. But the thing is that Dolby Vision, Dolby repositioned themselves into a place where they got a competitive advantage. And, because Dolby now is a licensing company, really. It's like literally, and it has been for years. It's made all its money from licensing, from everything from, Dolby B on tapes, Dolby A in cinema, to now Dolby Vision. It's a licensing gig. It's selling intellectual property. And I'm sure, they're not a poor company, Dolby. They're a very rich company. And wanted to maintain to be rich, but they actually had a great idea. And this is the thing. It's like, well, if somebody has a great idea and it really works, then why, it just works. I mean, it was the majority of the industry came together to help Dolby Vision work. Because it was like everybody was telling everybody what they wanted. I mean, it's interesting that in cinema now, the next generation, which is interesting, which is now starting to be deployed, there's a screen in the UK in Empire Leicester Square, screen 2 there, which is the supersized screen, is the only projector, certainly in the United Kingdom, which has got DCI HDR 300, which is the new cinema high dynamic range projection system. I think there's 6 in America. And you'd have to look on Barco's website to see where they are, but the only one in the UK and Europe, as far as I know, really, is in the Empire Leicester Square. And that's the thing. It's like literally cinema is moving to high dynamic range. Dolby Cinema, though, doesn't actually classes itself as EDR, extended dynamic range. So it's not high dynamic range; it's extended dynamic range. So HDR 300 is the only high dynamic range system for cinema. Now, everybody's going to listen to go, what 300 nits? That's not very much. My television does 2,000 nits. Well, on a 40-foot screen, 2,000 nits will blind you.
Yeah, exactly.
The bigger the screen, it doesn't necessarily need to be so bright because you've got a massive area, the area size.
Right.
I mean, literally 2,000 nits on a cinema screen would be like sort of like being standing at the sun in midday and trying to stare at it. It would just be when DCI did their tests of high dynamic range, they looked at 300, 500, and 800. And 800 gave people the most headaches. I think it was like a very large, over 60%, I think, of the audience were complaining of fatigue by the end of it. 500 was a lot better, but still people were complaining of fatigue. And the only one that actually didn't cause fatigue was 300. I think almost like 95, 99% of the people said they were comfortable watching it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be somebody who's not that happy with it, but that was the majority of the thing. And it's amazing that literally, it's taken this long for cinema to catch up where television's been for the last over 10 years.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
It's been 10 years. I can't believe it. I'm like, I feel like we just got HDR and, 4K HDR, and it's been 10 years.
Yeah. 2014, 2015. It was first shown in 2014, first released in 2015. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, how this year pans out. I mean, CES this year had some interesting developments. I mean, our friends at LG have now abandoned the white component of their OLED and gone for double blue, and in the process got a much wider color space and a much brighter image. And that's taken them 10 years, well, more than 10 years to get that far. OLED, I think, is probably the the format of choice, and then you've obviously got QD OLED and various other things which are all very good, but OLED is still probably the most flexible and accurate of all the systems. I mean,
most consistent. Quality
wise, and I mean, I know they're all tuned in the factory or tried to be tuned in the factory. I've never come across really an OLED screen that's not that good. I mean, they're all out of the box pretty good these days.
Yeah. When you start off with a contrast ratio like that, I mean, you can't. I mean, there's a lot. I don't want to say no room for error. There's a lot of room for error. It's hard to describe, but it's that contrast ratio that's just so hard to beat. And once you have that, it's okay. So can we reproduce the colors right? Can you do that? It's like for the typical eye, even the most discerning eye, it's going to be the most accurate. Like you said, out of the box. I mean, what can really happen in the meantime if it's just calibrated right at the factory? Boom, here you go. What can really change?
Well, I mean, what is fascinating now is the rise of home calibration. It's like Calman and their home calibration system is incredible. Their probe is really good. More and more televisions are now coming online with Calman ready calibration, and it is the cost of actually buying the equipment is about the same as paying a professional calibrator to come and do it. So, I mean, for people
for a display, you mean?
Yeah. So like,
I wouldn't say for a projector, but
no, projector is totally different thing. But for a display, this Calman Ready is a unique system where basically the Calman software can talk directly to the television and it interfaces directly with it, and it can turn everything off it needs to, and it has total control over creating it. It can not only do grayscale, it can also load in 3D LUTs. And it's very powerful. It's very clever. And I mean, that's, I think, Calman's future. I mean, the projection side is very good, but as you say, it's a lot more complicated, and it requires the equipment required to do projection, even though the probe that Calman sell probably is just about good enough to do it. I wouldn't recommend it for projection. You need something like a Klein K10A or something. Which aren't cheap. They start at $7,000.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you got the Klein. The thing that's fascinating about you got a Klein, which is an amazing device for calibrating everything. But you still need a photospectrometer to calibrate the Klein. It's like so you then have to go to $16,000 or even more, like the Qualia, which is like the one that everybody uses and we use with Dolby Cinema, the Qualia. They're like $30,000. So you need a $30,000 thing to calibrate your $6,000 thing, and then you need the software. It's like,
yes.
So anybody who complains about spending some calibrator charging a couple of $100 an hour, you don't realize the investment in equipment they've had to.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. We just had last week's Takeover Tuesday. It was Jack Lee in Australia. And he had his first calibration of his projector, first calibration ever in his life that he had. And he was blown away by the difference. And I was saying to him, even before he got the calibration, I'm like, don't be surprised if it's not that big a deal, because even projectors now out of the box are pretty good. It's not like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, where it's like it was almost a necessity to have a professional calibration because things were so far off, from the factory. It looked fine, but when you got a calibration, you were like, oh, wow. And, but even now it's like, he lived with it. I think he said like 18 months with his projector, and then he got it calibrated. So he had a good amount of time of getting used to that image. And then now knowing once he had the calibration, how good it was, he's like, oh my God, it's like night and day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, projection is slightly different because you've got so many variables. You've got the screen material, you've got the room environment's going to have a massive effect on it, depending on if you've got brightly colored walls or whatever, light walls, or I mean, ideally a great projection space would be a black room. If you go into the Dolby Cinema rooms, I mean, anybody who's seen Nosferatu really needs to see Nosferatu in Dolby Cinema, because it really huge difference because you're watching it in a completely black room with fully calibrated images. And I mean, the Robert Eggers and Jarin, that's their preferred method of seeing it. I met up with them at the first screening they had of the film, and we screened it in Dolby Vision there, and they were like, this is how we want people to see it. This is my preferred way of watching it. So I'm looking forward to when it's on the Kaleidoscope, because it'll be in Dolby Vision on that.
It is on Kaleidoscope already.
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet. I almost bought. What did it drop a few days ago? I think last week.
Okay.
And I almost. Where is it? Thieves, like no. It dropped the same day as Azrael, I believe.
Okay.
And I almost bought it. Yeah, it's in 4K, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, all that, $24.99. But I believe John didn't like it. He saw it in the theater and he was like, he wasn't crazy about it.
It's
so I was like, so I kind of hesitated, but I still do want to see it.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. I've seen it 3 times. I saw it originally with Robert and Jarin, who were there, and it was interesting watching it with them. And then I took a woman who works with us, Yvonne, who works on scripts with us, and we saw it in Dolby Cinema, and she was blown away visually, but thought it was the same. And then I took my business partner, Blanca, to see it in the same theatre, and she was the same thing. It's like style over substance. It looks amazing, but it's style over substance.
Okay.
So that's like seeing it over three occasions with 3 different groups of people, and obviously the filmmakers weren't going to say that, but the 2 other people I saw it with basically agreed that it was style over substance. And it does look visually stunning. I mean, it's fascinating. It gets darker and darker, and it's the whole darkest before the dawn thing. It gets darker and darker and darker until suddenly, like, they're freed, and then suddenly the whole thing lightens up, and you see the
Oh, okay.
The
interesting.
The dawn. Well, it's the typical vampire thing, isn't it? It's like sort of they're children of the night, so they only exist in the night. So they're and they bring darkness and darkness and darkness, and then suddenly, like when the sun comes up, then you get the light. And it's interesting that the Jarins and Adam Glassman, who graded it, the change in the look of it is amazing. I mean, Glassman has graded all of Jarin and Eggers' films, I think, since they did The Northman, and I'm not sure if he did The Witch, but he certainly did The Northman. It's incredible visually. And as I said, it'd be interesting to go back to the Oscars, whether or not he actually wins or not for that. I mean, he's an interesting cinematographer with an interesting look. And as I said, it's like now we've got the technology in the home to be able to see it as was created in the first place. And if actually, in some cases, it's probably better than it was in the cinema because people have spent more time perfecting it.
Well, it's I mean, we've said it so many times here on the show. It's like that intimate environment where, especially for all the people listening, we have that prime seating position. Everything's calibrated to that seating position, sound, video, everything. Whereas you go to the best Dolby Cinema, it's not calibrated to that seating position. It's calibrated to the room.
Yeah.
So there's some nuances that are probably lost audio wise. Giant screen like that, it's a little bit harder to catch all the details. Even though they are blown up, but it's, I really feel like our environments are really where it's at, like for details and getting the nuances of films like that. It's, that's where it's at for that kind of thing.
Yeah. We're in another era now where actually this is where I think things like Kaleidoscope, Lumigen, and it'd be interesting to see the next generation of projectors, how they. I mean, high-end projectors now are actually running behind really of what should be there. The contrast ratio that you really want is something equivalent to Dolby Cinema. And it's like, if Barco start utilizing their light steering technology in their home cinema projectors or high-end home cinema projectors, it would be a different game, different ball game. It'll give you something that is not as good as cinema, but better than most cinemas. I mean, the problem we got with cinemas is they can't afford to refurbish. I mean, they've moved over to digital cinema. That was a subsidized process. Now that they're looking that, what is the next thing? Because people are sitting there going, well, it looks better at home on my OLED, or whatever. My OLED, they bought, they cost them probably like $800. And you go into a cinema, and I mean, like the cinema that's one of the best in London, I mean, tickets range from about £30 up to nearly $100.
But I mean, the bigger anything gets, the harder it is to make it look good, if not great, right? Never mind great. It's hard to make it look good. So of course, you shrink stuff down to even like an 80-inch OLED, and I say shrink down to an 80-inch OLED, you're going to be like, oh my God, that blows away any projector. And it's like, well, not really, but the sharpness and the colors of this and that, it's like, well, yeah, but everything's concentrated to that smaller space. Any flaws in the film are going to be hidden because it's a smaller space. Any specks on the film are going to be hidden because they're just smaller. You blow it up onto 150 inches and you get a speck of dust that's going to be much bigger, or you get a flaw in the film. There's so many variables that are taken away with a smaller screen.
Yeah, but I feel though for people, because it's like, you go to the cinema these days and you're not going to get much change out of $100. If you're taking your kids with you and if it's 4 of you, it's easily over $100. So it's like, yes, it has to be really good to justify that, that experience. It's like, if you're paying $100 buys you quite a lot. I mean, in other experiences. So this is where cinema has to step itself up. And I mean, it will do. I mean, the big chains are, really looking. I mean, like AMC in America, Odeon, are looking at how they can move across to the new technologies that are coming along. And but it has to adapt to survive. Cinema has always had to adapt to survive. I mean, hasn't stayed still. It's it's not 16 frames per second, black and white, silent.
Right.
We've now moved forward into high frame rate, high dynamic range. There's a whole host of stuff that we've now come through with. And cinemas had to adapt to it.
Adapting to streaming, adapting to the whole entire, the Netflix, the HBO Maxes, all of the competition that they have now. And again, for the consumer, it's good for us because they have to up their game, and that you have to adapt, you have to evolve. Otherwise, like Jurassic Park, you become extinct, you go away. And what's funny is I hear it, you hear it all the time in any hobby, but you hear it in home theater. It's like, oh my God, it's, this is going away, or the projectors are going to go away because you got, wall, screens, you got all this, and people are afraid. People are afraid like physical media is going to go away. Right. Or like, oh my God, it's the death of this. I've been doing this since the 80s. Nothing ever goes away. It just evolves to something else. Physical media will never go away because people love collecting stuff. There's just something about. I'm just trying to find an example here of like, it's not about the. Here's an example. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. I mean, look at how that's presented. I mean, it's a collectible item. This is the Criterion version. It's it's approved by the director. It's nice to hold and to give to somebody, and it's a lot of them come with books and essays and other stuff and posters and other collectible stuff. So that's
that's never going to go away because people like that kind of stuff. So, I mean, he's getting a little ridiculous. So I must admit, Wicked, what is it, $300 for the special edition of Wicked?
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like, I don't know what Universal are thinking there, but it's like, was it the ultimate whatever version of Wicked is, I think, like 300 and something odd dollars. And it's like, well, yeah, okay, that's slightly abusing the market because everybody is complaining at the moment that literally, I mean, a lot of releases are only being put out now as steelbooks. So instead of like being $24.99, they're $34.99. And a steelbook does not cost another $10 to manufacture.
No. But we were talking about, I think I was talking about it in the Patreon chat, about the costs going up of discs, steelbooks, of just getting the 4K discs. That's going up to like $28 to $34 just for the, a new release. But at the same time, what I was saying is physical media has remained relatively cheap, or has become relatively cheap, I should say, because when DVDs came out, to replace laser discs for all intents and purposes, they came out at like $19.99, $24, right around there. And they stayed right around that price point up until a few years ago, where they started getting up into the mid 20s and stuff. But you figure from 97, what was $20 in 97 compared to now?
Yeah.
And so they've become relatively cheap. And the fact that they're maybe going to be an average of $30 now for a 4K, which is far superior to DVD was back then. But for $30 now, was the cost of we're still far behind the inflation rate. Yeah.
No, yeah. Well, yeah, just to be slightly controversial, then in North America, all the discs are going to go up by 25%, I would imagine, in the next couple of weeks. Because
why?
Guess what? All the discs are either manufactured in Canada or Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. It's that's all going to change. Haven't we already heard about that though? Like, they're all even being taken down. Like they're not even going to hold firm to it.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was fascinating. It's like, no one seems to realize the sort of importance that Canada and Mexico play in the supply chain.
Yeah. Well, not for my Kaleidoscape.
Yeah. That's going back to the cost of things on Kaleidoscape, because everyone goes, oh, why is the Kaleidoscape stuff so expensive? Well, actually, Kaleidoscape don't set the prices. Actually, the film companies set the prices that Kaleidoscape charge.
Right.
Which I think is a bit naughty of the film companies, because it's, but yeah, that will probably change as more and more people come on board. Then actually, they'll, hopefully the pricing will become a little more flexible, because some of the things on Kaleidoscape are slightly more expensive than they are on disc.
A few of them. Most of them right now, I've been noticing are cheaper because they're coming in. The average is around $24. And then you can get them, if you wait, like what was Wolfman we were talking about yesterday on the show. And I'm like, I probably won't get that and watch that until like October, right? For Halloween or something. And by then, like right now it's $24.99 to buy, and it's still in theaters. So I can get it on Kaleidoscape for $24.99, but they'll have a sale in a few months and you grab it for $14.99 or something like that. And it's like, you don't get a box with it. You don't get a steelbook. You don't get this. But don't get a Kaleidoscape to save money on your movies.
But you're getting it for the best picture and sound.
Yeah, there you go. The possibility of it. But yeah, it's, I think the pricing on it has become cheaper than physical media, than buying discs, I should say, because they're both physical media.
And also, you haven't got the storage issue with the Kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are very proud of their rooms and all their shelving. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like libraries. People collected books in libraries. They had rooms with ladders in them and stuff for their books. That let's go to the library. Now people have their physical media collection, and I've had people on the show where an entire huge wall is just discs. It's awesome.
But what can you probably the guys at home or anybody at home can't see this, but this is not opened. I have lots of them that are not opened.
Oh yeah, I have the Maverick set, the big box, special edition Maverick. Never opened it. It's still sitting in my theater on display. I've never opened it. I just watch it on the Kaleidoscope, but I bought it because I like the movie. Like you were saying, I like to collect things, and there you go. I love the movie, so I bought the collector's edition. I think I bought the regular edition too.
Yeah, I do that as well because you don't open the collector's edition.
Exactly. You buy the disc. I have the, and I had the disc, and I have the Kaleidoscope version, and I have the collector's edition. So I still support physical media in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is never going to go away. But I mean, what we have to look at is evolving, because there's like literally lots of things you can't get in 4K on disc, which are 4K on Kaleidoscope. So, I mean, for example, if you like rom-coms, they don't tend to release rom-coms in 4K on disc, but on the Kaleidoscope, they're all 4K.
They're becoming that. They're getting more and more. And I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter. It's, especially like comedies, romantic comedies, even some dramas, but my action movies, but I'm a guy, I want my room to go boom. So that's, it's like, I want that, but a comedy and stuff like that. It's like, I'll watch a good comedy upstairs in the living room, I can still get the laughs. It is nice, and we've talked about it on the show, to watch an older comedy in the theater and be like, oh wow, I haven't seen that in so long, and see it on the big screen again. But you can get the laughs on a small screen. You don't need,
You're like this, DJ. I'll let you into a little secret. Our good friend Christopher Nolan, his favorite type of films he likes to watch and kick back to are rom-coms.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
But then if you're going to make serious films like he does, then watching a rom-com is going to, you're going to, otherwise you go insane if you were watching,
Tenet.
Yeah.
He's got an interesting mind. That's for sure.
So,
the way he thinks, and his creativity is like, bar none. It's like, I think what I find interesting, what I like about Christopher Nolan, same as James Cameron too, is that, and one of the things that I love about home theater is it's the marriage of technology and art.
Yeah.
And I feel like both Nolan and Cameron both do that in a way that they love technology, they love pushing the envelope, but they want to do things artistically. They want to create. They want to, and I mean, even Cameron with his exploring and stuff, and that's his real passion. And then he does the art thing to help fund that. But
if you look at it, it's interesting that home cinema was basically invented by Star Wars and Cameron. George Lucas and Jim Cameron invented home cinema, because you think about it, that's what everybody wanted. Yeah, back in the 90s. It's like you wanted to watch Star Wars the best you could, and you wanted to watch T2 the best you could.
Yeah.
And The Abyss.
In the 90s. Yeah. And it's like, well, what do you think of even cable TV in the 80s playing a big part of that, and being able to, going from, over here we had 3 channels, we had our 3 network channels up until cable television. And then in the 80s, we get cable television, you get HBO, you've got the movie channel, Cinemax, all of this. And, like John and I say, like all these movies were like, oh my God, that was on, like Star Wars was on a loop on HBO. Yeah. Like almost every day you could watch that. And that, I think, plays a big part into the developmental part of people like myself that was young. And I'm like, now we're getting this in our home. We're getting it on our, 14, 17 inch, maybe, my parents, I think our main living room was like a 20 inch, 24 inch television.
Yeah.
And you want to recreate and I think that's where home theater came from for people like us. It's like, all right, I'm tired of watching it on this little square television. I want to get back to what it's like to go to the theater.
Well, it's like I remember, when I was growing up, our TV, I think, probably 22, 24 inch. And I remember when I convinced my father to get a 26 inch, it seemed huge. It was incredible. And then I remember buying, when I started working, I bought myself a 16:9 widescreen television, 32 inches, and I thought it was huge. I mean, it was like, it was, nowadays, the smallest that people would consider would be 65 inches. So,
yeah, for your main living, 65. It's like, I mean, even now, 55 feels like I have a 55 in the living room, but I have a theater, right?
Well,
and
I have a 55 inch in my bedroom. It's like, and it seems
small. Exactly. Yeah.
But the thing is, because it's so flat and it's on the wall, you don't even know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like my living room, it's in a corner in this house. So if I went 65, it would kind of bend. The 55 is already into the window, like it's covering up part of the window in the corner there in the living room. So if I went 65, it would take up too much space. It's cutting into the fireplace. It would be too much. And I don't mind because, like I said, you have the theater, you have a giant screen. If I want to watch something huge, I'll come down to the theater. But in the new house, it'll be 65, But again, the sacrilege over the fireplace. But I have a theater downstairs. I'll have a media room downstairs. So it's like that's just really up there for, casual viewing or whatever. But to your point, 65 inch. I'm not messing around with 55.
To the next evolution of cinema, which really we should talk about. Which is the Sphere.
Oh, have you been?
Yes, the Sphere is something else. The Sphere is something beyond. It's 16K, which is incredible. But the thing that is beyond the scope of the screen and the size of the image and the clarity of the image and the impactfulness of the image. I mean, I could talk. I was explaining to the great British film director Mike Leigh last Saturday about it, and I said it doesn't matter how long I talk about it. I said I cannot get anywhere close. Like, you have to see it. It's like I could talk for 2 hours and you wouldn't get anywhere close to really explaining what it's like. Yes. And the thing that fascinates me though is the sound. Do you know how many speakers are in the Sphere? Well, so the one in Las Vegas at the Venetian. Do you know how many are at?
I can't even begin to guess. I mean, it's a Sphere, so
there's 147,000 speakers.
147,000?
Yes.
So you've got to be at that point. You're dividing it out. You've got tweeters, you got mid range. You're not talking full standing speaker. You're running all sorts of types of speakers, right?
Well, the whole thing is it uses this is like. I mean, not to be disrespectful to Dolby Atmos or any of the things. It's like this is audio in another generation, completely.
Oh, of course.
This is really what cinema should have thought about. Because I remember years ago, one of the sound mixers I worked with kept saying because he'd done his masters, and he'd done it on ambisonics, and ambisonics is literally something completely. It's like it changes the way in which we perceive audio because literally it gives it reality. It's no longer left and right speakers. It creates a image of sound, and a three-dimensional image of sound. I mean, you get sort of like, lots of demos and demo CDs you can buy that work on headphones that use binaural audio and stuff like that to try and. But ambisonics and literally the Sphere uses ambisonics, and it's a German company that developed it, and it's again, I can talk about it for hours, but it won't make a difference because literally it's not.
You got to experience it to believe it.
Experience it to believe it, and even then, you'd be like, it's like a God moment. It's like literally everybody who's been there, it's like an epiphany.
Wow.
I mean, on my Instagram, I've been retweeting lots of not retweeting because it's Instagram, reposting on Instagram. Lots of stuff that people have shot at the Sphere and when they've been at the Sphere, because it's just, I mean, they don't mind you filming in the Sphere because it doesn't matter.
You can't duplicate it. Yeah. You can't, exactly. It's like, go ahead, go home with all the information and try to do it yourself. Good luck to you.
And it's fascinating because the guy who put the money into it, the eccentric billionaire, he was looking at what the future of cinema was, and he looked at IMAX and looked at Dolby Cinema, and suddenly this is all 20th century technology. How do we move to the 21st century? And literally the Sphere is literally the only real 21st century cinema experience. I mean, it is quite something. I mean, literally, I mean, it's the one in Vegas is constantly sold out. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
But everything is incredible about the Sphere. It's like literally you get into it via the Venetian, you go into the Venetian, and the whole entrance into it is like it takes you about 20 minutes to actually get to the cinema because you go through all these other experiences on the way that are very good because it's a bit like the sort of the Dolby Transition Tunnel, but a next generation beyond that because it's refining your expectations. So actually, when you walk into the Sphere, you go, "What the?"
Yeah.
And it is.
What was the goal in mind? Like, did they just want to like push the envelope, create something that couldn't be duplicated, or is it literally like a prototype for the future of cinema?
Yeah, it's like the prototype for the future. So the idea was to create something that was as close to a sort of holographic three-dimensional experience as possible without using any of the trickery. It's like literally taking it to the next level and the experience and the feel. And the first film that was done that Darren Aronofsky did, I mean, it's interesting that Darren Aronofsky did this film, but what is even more exciting about that is that actually Jennifer Lane, who is a wonderful editor, who edited Tenet and Oppenheimer, edited it. Because obviously she knows an awful lot about how to make things look good for a very large screen. And I mean, the U2 concert they did there, and they've done several dance raves with, I mean, at that point you don't need drugs because the whole thing is such a hallucinogenic experience that literally you're just tripping just by looking up.
Yeah.
It's that is the next generation. I mean, this is where everyone goes, oh yeah, 16K, yeah, because everyone's going, oh, nobody's doing better than 4K. Well, this starts at 16K. So.
Yeah, but at its size, it needs to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just so, like we say you don't need 4K. You don't even need 4K in the home. No. I'd say once you're up into 100-inch plus 70, above 80, 4K, you see the advantage of it, but seating distance makes a difference there too, where you might not need it. But anything over that, it's in the home, your home, your literal home, not the room that the theater is in. The home isn't big enough to display to really need anything more than 4K, right? Like it's ridiculous. So
you probably need a 250, 300-inch screen to start justifying 8K.
Right. Yeah, the difference between the two. Yeah, 200 plus. It was 200 plus is what I've seen demonstrated. And it's like, oh, okay, I see, and even at that, it's a marginal difference. And it has to do with your seating distance, because when you're at a 200-inch screen, you're not sitting that close to it. Yeah. You're probably sitting at least 20 feet away, or thereabouts. And at that point, you're not really telling the difference between 4K and 8K. Yeah. You really have to, you got to get up close to the screen. I'd say at like 5 feet, you'd be able to go, okay, yeah. And you'd have to have a test pattern on and go, okay, there's the pixels. Oh, I see the difference. There's 8K, there's 4K. The same way I've demonstrated with 1080 to 4K. You've got to get your nose up to it and see the difference on the screen even on mine at 110 inches. Okay, you got to get right up to it to see the difference, Yeah. But yeah, on a screen like that, and you can get 16K, and you got it's insane because it's just so big.
So I recommend anybody who's visiting Vegas to go to the Sphere because book if you're going, book now because the tickets are always sold out, and it's also not cheap as well. It's a great night out. It's a great experience. It's literally, I think almost everybody who's ever been in there has had an epiphany of some sort because it's like literally even the most, cynical person will come out of there and go, Jesus, that was quite something.
The cynical person. What cynical person's going into that? They gotta have it. They gotta be excited and have an open mind anyways. You can't be walking in going, nope, this is going to be horrible.
So, but cinema is that is the next evolution of cinema. It's like sort of, and what is fascinating about that though is it's a communal experience, and that's the key. It's a communal experience.
Yeah.
It's like theatre. It's like, people who go to see theatre. And I mean, I don't go to theatre that often because I just, it's really weird. Last time I went to the theatre was to see a play about the guy who was the one who created Putin. I can't remember his name now. It was the Russian. It was a very, very, very well received play. It was amazing, but I had to almost like reprogram myself. It's like the first half of it, I couldn't really follow what was going on because it was like, it's theatre. I don't understand what's going on. It's theatre. But then by the time I'd actually reprogram myself to actually understand what was going and look at it and not go, where's the close-up? Where's the close-ups gone?
Yeah.
I actually started to enjoy it. But that also was because it's a communal experience. And going back to what you're saying, it's like, cinema came along and that didn't kill theatre.
No.
Photography is exceptional. That didn't kill people doing paintings.
Right. Exactly. What it did do, though, is I would say this. It got you had to get more creative.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were going to be a photographer, or not even a photographer, I'm sorry, if you're going to paint, but we have photography. So basically it took people like myself, like my artistic ability is in the eye. Okay. It's like, I love I'm like a human Xerox machine. That's what my, teachers and professors used to say about me. It's like, and so I was always fascinated by, the training that you go through in art school. It's like to see. That's like step one in art is to be able to see and know it, like to be able to duplicate. Then from there, you can go to the next level, like my brother, and get creative, and you take reality and you bend it, twist it, and do fun things with it. That's where the art went, right? When the camera came about, people like myself, like, well, I'm out of a job. Nobody cares if I can duplicate exactly what I'm seeing because I have a camera that can do that. So you need to either be really good at what like people like myself do, and be like, okay, I'm gonna paint you or draw you in a certain way, and it's more it looks more creative than just a photograph. Or you just get really creative and you do characters, or you do a more creative version of reality. So and again, like we were saying about cinema, it's like you've got to get more creative. The evolution, it's either you get more creative or you go away, or you become extinct. And it's like, but people are always wanting to be entertained. Throughout history, we've wanted to be entertained. So to be afraid like physical media is going to go away, this particular physical, like the Blu-ray might go away, the 4K Blu-ray might go away, like the Laserdisc, like the VHS did, or whatever. But the movies and the entertainment, the content will always be coming in one form or another.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is people, I mean, now if you look at it, the average person can live like a king. If you go back 300, 400 years and you're a king, you could be entertained all the time. You had the musicians came out and performed for you. You had all the chefs cooking food for you. You had, comedians, players. But now you can almost do exactly the same thing at home. You get your phone up, you can get Uber Eats will deliver food to you. Freshly cooked. You can be entertained in any myriad of experiences you want. So the average person now can live like a king that they were, several hundred years ago, and now literally they have the common person has the power of a king,
right?
I mean, you think about it. We all live in homes now. We can turn the heating up. We can make them hotter, colder. We can make it lighter, darker. I can, just at the press of a button, change the color of the room.
Right.
I mean, this is almost like sort of like what the years ago people would class as magic.
Yeah.
We can do all this sort of stuff.
He's a witch.
I'm talking to you that I'm sitting in the center of London.
Yep. And I'm sitting in the back-ass woods of Douglas, Massachusetts.
We're having a conversation. I mean, I'm sitting probably 2 minutes away from where the Soviet Union was founded. Lenin stopped around the corner from me here. And when he was over here, Lenin, he went and met a guy called Karl Marx. That wouldn't have happened. I mean, that wouldn't have happened these days. They would have done it like this. I mean,
right. Yeah.
The fact is that back then, if you wanted to start a revolution, you had to go meet each other. Now, we have the world can talk to each other. We can interact with each other. We don't, ideas and things can be so readily
exchanged.
Yeah. I mean, you look at YouTube, which this is going to be on. YouTube is an incredible platform. I mean, it's fascinating that YouTube really isn't particularly very well known for story-based linear content. It's known for specialisms. I mean, if you look at all the DVD and Blu-ray and 4K review channels on there and people doing things and, things like yourself, which is a home theater, I mean, also, if you look at some of the number of the views, it's like, I mean, if you look at our friend Vincent Tejo, who does television reviews, some of his TV reviews have got more views than sort of CNN gets when it's running during the day.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's, you consider home theater or anything like that a niche market, but even at that, there's millions and millions of people, right? Even, if it's like 1% of the population and there's billions and billions of people, that's a lot of people around the world. And I mean, there's a market for that. And it's a passionate market. It's, I talk to other people that podcast other areas, comics, other things. And they all, every time I have a conversation with people, they're like, your audience is so passionate. I was like, yeah, because we all built, like you said earlier, we built these rooms in the caves or whatever. It's because we just wanted to do something, and it became our our church, like you said, or whatever. But it's the room we went to, but we couldn't share it with anybody. And now all of a sudden, because of the magic of the internet, there's podcasts, there's people you can talk to and be like that are like-minded that have been dying to talk about this stuff for years. And then the word goes around the world, and it's like, you're like, there you go. And it's like, it shrinks the world in a way that the niche it feels so much bigger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you look at the way the world has shrunk now, but actually what it is you can get access to knowledge that you wouldn't, you'd never have been able to discover. I mean, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that literally, how did we discover everything previously? It's like, well, through magazines, really.
Yeah.
The magazine was king. That's how information was disseminated in specialist subjects.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you were lucky, there might have been a television program, but that was very rare.
But what was hard about that with magazines, and especially talking with, I read Home Theater Magazine, Sound and Vision Magazine, and read Brent Butterworth for years, going back to late 80s, 90s. He became editor, all of this stuff. And now he's on the show, consider him a friend. And it's like, you talk to him. Even the magazines, though, it was all editorialized. We only got, and it was all of that stuff, it was editorialized and commercialized for what came through. And that's what I remember getting my information in the ads. Oh, this must be the best one. And we gauged everything on price. So if it was expensive, it had to be good. But now we have access to so much knowledge. People are out there just as a hobby. They're giving you A/B tests of equipment as a hobby, right? And you're getting so much more knowledge about stuff that it's literally changed the market completely, and now you have, and that's why I like Brent and Dennis doing their show. They're just cutting loose. They're telling everybody all the stuff over the years. They're like, this is all BS and blah, 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 blah. And you're hearing more and more about stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like literally, there are no secrets anymore. There is no, it's like literally everybody knows how everything works. So
to a degree,
that level of honesty also means that there's a greater understanding, and therefore things get pushed a lot farther. If you think about it, if things are very secret and no one knows how it works, then literally how's it ever going to evolve? Whereas if you look at it now, it's like somebody's going to do something and they're going to go, "Oh, this is how it works." Well, a lot of people go, "Well, actually, you could have done it. It gets better," and that's how things get developed. And it's like how if you look at the speed at which things on the internet have developed, it's because literally there's so much feedback.
Yeah,
that it's easy for things to evolve.
Well, I remember in school, there was a saying in art. It was like, a good artist borrows, a great artist steals.
Yeah.
You'll take something and make it better. You'll be like, I'm just stealing that and I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it mine. And I'll own it and be like, I did that. I came up with the idea. Yeah, but watch that. Hold my beer. Watch this. And then go ahead. Try to be better than me. And that's what the internet has done with everything, with technology, with everything. It's like, all right, you think you're better than me? Knock yourself out. And it keeps, and I think that's a huge part of human nature too, is that competitiveness. Right. I mean, we see that in home theater, like, oh, I got the great time. I mean, we're not only competing against everybody else on the internet with our theaters, but we're also competing against ourselves. How many of us sit in our theaters and go, as Travis and I talked a few weeks ago, like, now I'm there. No, you're never there. You're never there because you're always like, all right, there's got to be something coming better. Something's coming around the corner. And here we have the sphere. Am I going to be alive to have a sphere in my house? Is the technology going to evolve where I can build a sphere in my house in my lifetime? Probably not.
Well, that'll be the thing. I mean, I'm sure somebody's sitting there at the moment trying to work out how to commercialize the whole thing because at the moment it is the vision and dream of an eccentric billionaire. They're looking to open another one, possibly in Barcelona. I think they were originally going to have open it in London on the former site of the Olympic Village. But a wonderful mayor in the UK, in London, Sadiq Khan, decided it was going to cause too much light pollution. Because if anybody ever seen the sphere, not only is it amazing on the inside, the whole sphere on the outside is covered with micro LEDs. And actually, you can make it look like anything. It's just, it's an attraction in itself. But Barcelona, I mean, it's interesting because everyone's at ISE at the moment. I mean, I technically should be in Barcelona at the moment because everyone's in ISE listening and working out what the next generation of AV equipment is. I mean, all the professional installers are down there. And I'm
that's Todd Anderson's there. My buddy Todd been on the show. Yeah, Todd's there right now. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, ISE is a great show. I mean, thank God they moved it from Amsterdam. I hate Amsterdam. It's a horrible city. Yeah. Barcelona is absolutely delight. You get that beautiful sea breeze, that lovely morning air. All you get in Amsterdam is a lot of people running over in bikes. It's just like being in London.
Steve is loving you right now when he's listening to this. He's like, he loves Spain.
Well, I love Spain. Spain. I mean, there's something very unique about Spain. It's like
Spanish. It's very Spanish about Spain.
There's actually Spanish about Spain, but there's the art, the culture, the people, the food. I've never had a bad time in Spain. I mean, I haven't either. I've never been, but I can honestly say I've never had a bad time there. It's a good place. I mean, it's they don't really have any film culture.
Really?
They've only got one filmmaker, Pedro Almodovar. I mean, literally, it's
good old Petey.
Yeah. It's sad. It's like I met some filmmakers from Portugal who were really trying hard in Portugal to make it work over there for them. It's very hard to make films, unless you're making films for a Hollywood studio, because it's the studios have the entire distribution mechanism tied up. So if you're making a independent film or a European film, you've got to basically make it with government subsidy, and bureaucrats aren't particularly that imaginative.
You don't say. Oh God.
We used to have a term in the UK for in Europe there was a lot of films that were called Euro puddings because they were like literally a little bit of money from Germany, a little bit of money from France, a little bit of money from Holland, a little bit of money from Poland. Put it all together and you make a Euro pudding. But it's interesting, like me, it's funny I mentioned Mike Lee earlier, Mike Lee's films, and also his other compatriot who lives literally just behind me, Ken Loach. All those films are made using European money. because that's the only way they can make them work. Even though, as Mike was waxing lyrical when I saw him on Saturday about the Criterion Collection, because like all his films are on the Criterion Collection, that really, they're not 100% commercially viable. That actually wouldn't work without subsidies. I mean, they're culturally brilliant films, but they're just not they're not Jurassic Park. Hidden Truths, his latest film, is fascinating. I mean, I think that opened in America last week. It didn't do well. It did okay, actually. It did very well considering the number of screens it was in. I mean, it's about a woman who's basically grumpy.
Okay.
Literally, it's just about a film who's a nasty piece of work, and she gets a comeuppance at the end. It's like, and it's it worked really well. So cinema is an interesting one outside of North America, and America is still the biggest cinema market in the world. Second biggest cinema market in the world, which might surprise some people, is actually Japan. And then the third biggest cinema market in the world is the UK. And then it's Germany after that.
Really?
Yeah.
And what's the drop off like?
Well, I mean, you're looking at, there used to be a rule of thumb that, I mean, they usually look at it worldwide. So it used to be at one point, North America would probably make 60 to 70% of the gross, and 30% would be the rest of the world. But there was a guy who works at 20th Century Fox, very clever, a guy called Bill Mechanic. And he decided, because Cameron ran out of money on, the studio almost ran out of money on Titanic, so they had to do a deal. So he gambled that he would sell Paramount the North American rights to Titanic, and 20th Century Fox would have the rest of the global rights. And the guy became a legend because literally Titanic, I think, was the first film that was like 45% North America, 55% globally. So actually Paramount slightly lost out and Fox made more money. But then also you've got we go back to the independent stuff. It's like all the studios have independent labels now. I mean, Disney, we have Searchlight. Sony has Sony Pictures Classic. Paramount Vantage, which is the other one, and you've got Universal's got Focus Features, which is the people who released Nosferatu. There's lots of A24 did Nosferatu. Focus Features is the Brutalist. But it's like trying to cover all the markets, because this is the trouble at the moment, is that people are making films that are too expensive. And it's like, well, if you made a film that cost $400 million, then literally it's got to sell in every country around the world and do really well. Whereas like you look at A Complete Unknown that Searchlight made, that was made for $50 million, which, okay, is a lot of money still, but $50 million is certainly a hell of a lot easier to make a film
back
than something that's cost $400 million.
I've heard that a lot about like Steve's favorite, horror. It's like you can make those relatively cheap and they do really well. They're money makers, almost guaranteed.
The horror is fascinating because you can do horror really well. It's like I in my other position, me and my business partner, we've sat and talked quite a lot about how horror films can be made relatively cheaply. You don't need a star in them. You just need an interesting concept, and you need a shock value, and that's about it. You just, if you can meet all those things, like Smile 2, I thought was incredible. Smile 2, I thought was an amazing piece of cinema. That cost like next to nothing. I mean, it's got an actress in it she's quite well known, but she's not a A-list star, so she wouldn't have cost very much. Or you take Steve's favorite film, Evil Dead Rises. I mean, the woman who appeared in that should have won an Oscar for her performance, because it's like literally.
Here we go.
Yogi bending and the performance was incredible. I didn't particularly like the film, but
thank you.
But from what she achieved, I was blown away by it. I thought it was an incredible performance. Most of which Steve probably doesn't know, most of which was done in Northern Ireland.
Don't tell him that.
Yes. There's some tax advantages. You see, trying to make money. There's tax advantages to doing films in Northern Ireland.
Well, it's the same here. They shoot everything in Canada.
Yeah.
Around here. It's like there's parts of like Toronto, outskirts of Toronto and stuff like that are shot for Boston.
Yeah.
And like I'll see movies or series, TV shows be like shot in Boston. The story is supposed to take place in Boston or Massachusetts, and it'll be like everything shot in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's just cheaper.
Yeah. I mean I'm surprised that the American unions haven't quite figured this one out. It's like, I can see what they're trying to do is protect jobs, but the locals in America really have, probably not helped cinema.
Well, that's the thing. Are you really protecting the jobs if the jobs just leave?
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows that shot in Vancouver, which they do a ton of shooting. Hollywood shoots a ton of shows and everything up in Vancouver because it's cheaper. Everybody goes up there, they shoot the season, and they come back. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, I guess I get the idea, like for, you keep the market what it is, these people get paid the wage, and that if you want to stay in the States, this is what it costs you. If you want to save some money, you can go up there. If we lowered it here, you just get more work, but each individual would be getting less. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get the idea of it. It's kind of like selling, do you want like Kaleidoscape, for instance, right? Kaleidoscape doesn't, or actually even a better version would be Apple TV.
Yeah.
The Apple TVs versus a Roku.
Yeah.
They sell less Apple TVs, so they have to charge more, but Rokus go out the door left and right because they're only like $40, $50. They sell more of them, but you can't do that with wages. You know what I mean? Like you can't have a person making more. They just have to work twice as many hours, which isn't possible to make the same money. So I kind of get the idea of it. If you want to save the money, go north. But if you want to work here, this is what it costs to live in this country.
Well, it's interesting. A little anecdote here. Warren Beatty and the amazing cinematographer Vittorio Storaro actually broke the unions in America. When Warren Beatty was doing a film called Reds, they were doing some research in Los Angeles, and Storaro came round to his house and he was crying because he's a very passionate guy. And he said, "What's the matter?" And Warren was like, what's going on? Is there something wrong with your family? Has somebody died? He says, no, I cannot shoot the film tomorrow with you. I cannot be there. And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, I'm not a member of the local union. They won't let me work." So Warren Beatty went and positioned the Academy and brought it up in Congress and got them to make a ruling that if you're a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, you could work in any state because you were considered to be the very best of the best, and you would actually generate work. Your presence there would actually instigate work, and actually it would be a negative not to allow Academy members to work in each state. So as an Academy member, one of the only real benefits is that you can actually work in any state in the US and don't have to remember the local union, because literally you trump that thing by saying, well, you being there is going to generate work.
Right. You're bringing work to the union.
Yeah.
For all intent. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, literally until, 1980, when Beatty was doing Reds, literally you couldn't work. When I worked on the film Glory with Ed Zwick and Freddie Francis, one of the things that that was done in North Carolina, which basically is a right to work state. So it wasn't an issue. And I mean, until I was capable of transgressing the locals, I could only work in right to work states, or had to join the union, or have a shadow. A shadow is hysterical. Literally, I'm going to work. Yeah, they pay somebody twice, so they employ somebody to sit there and read the paper.
Really? So just like, so you get a union member just to escort you.
Yes. There are certain people who I don't think have ever shot a single film in their entire life, but have worked on some of the biggest films of all time.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
They get a credit?
Yes, I think
that's what, Shadow? Shadow number one.
I don't know exactly, but they get, but they get paid for sitting there and just literally reading the newspaper.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's one of the drawbacks to a union. It's like,
I'm a big fan. On one hand, I do agree with unions, but on another hand, it's like, you've got to find a balance between
yes,
profitability and success, and actually just milking it until the company will fall over. Because that's what happened in the UK in the 70s, and like the unions were just like stupid. They were just like, we want more money, to actually to the point where the companies weren't making any money.
Yeah.
And the quality of the products was going down, and it's like they just destroyed themselves.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Everything has a balance, and it'll eventually work itself out, right? If you outprice yourself, meaning as a group, it'll work itself out because it'll eventually be like, oh, we can't do this anymore. Sorry, it's just not possible. So that's balance. That's nature. It just happens.
I still love the power of the Teamsters though, because that's you don't mess with the Teamsters.
I was a Teamster.
Well, there you go. That's what respect to you. DJ.
Yeah, there you go. I was a Teamster. I worked at a factory. I was a Teamster. I forget what local it was.
But it's interesting in the film world, if you're moving equipment from one side of the country to the other, one Teamster cannot take you all the way across the country. So they'll meet in Kansas, and the East Coast Teamsters will unload their truck and then hand over to a West Coast Teamster who will take over in Kansas and carry on driving it.
Yeah, isn't that the basis of Smokey and the Bandit?
Yes. That is what that film is about. It's a great film, Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that movie. So good. But yeah, it's like, that's... it's a comedy, it's a fun movie, but that's exactly what that movie's about. So funny.
Yeah.
And you weren't allowed to exchange back then. You just couldn't cross. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That was the problem. And it's like, it's hard to believe that was going in the 70s. That's like, you couldn't bring literally, what was it? Coors Light? Coors, not Coors Light. It was Coors.
Yeah.
You couldn't get to the East Coast. It's crazy.
But the America. It's because obviously the very sad the fires in Los Angeles, and that has brought LA to its knees in lots of respects. But then, actually, what's going to come out, the phoenix coming out of the ashes, is probably going to be a lot bigger and a lot stronger. Yeah, and they know what they need to do. So hopefully, if they do the right thing, then actually it will bring a lot of production back to LA. You take Disney, which I'm very familiar with. 96% of all our production is done outside of America. Most of it's done in the UK. Actually, a lot of things you don't even know you'd think were done in America, actually done in the UK. Bob Zemeckis' new film Here, which is a strange avant-garde piece of cinema, but that was all shot at Leavesden, in the UK, where Harry Potter was shot. But as for all intents and purposes, you believe you're somewhere in America, and it looks like it's shot in America. And there's nothing even at the end of the film that actually tells you that it's not shot in America.
Really?
Yeah. The thing that gave it away for me, because I saw it last year at some point. A very good friend of mine who's a brilliant grip, who I hooked up again with on Saturday at the BSC Awards, a guy called Kevin Fraser. He was the grip on it, and I thought, okay, if Kevin's a grip on it, it must be shot in this country.
Yeah. So, is it out yet? It's not out yet?
I don't know. I saw it at an Academy screening they had of it last year. Obviously, they were trying to drum up business for it, but I think it's either out now or it's this week or next week it's out. Tom Hanks, and I'm trying to think, who else is in it? What's her name? Jenny. Whoever plays Jenny, Robin Wright Penn. Okay. Robin Wright. She probably doesn't like to use the word pen anymore. So she's in it. So it's like literally, it's a strange film about a time and a place. It's like, imagine if you stood on one spot and history evolved around you. That's what the film's about.
What was the name of it?
Here. Here.
Okay. I was looking it up on IMDb. If it's coming up here. Upcoming. Boom. here. Oh, no, here. It says it's previous. It says it's out.
Okay.
2024 came. Well, so yeah, it probably came out in 2024, but not wide released.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Oh, cool.
But,
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's lots of advantages to being in America. There's also a lot of advantages of being outside of America. I mean, the studios have a global domination, but it's interesting that the studios now are losing a lot of their grip to the streamers, and the streamers are now actually becoming the new studios. I mean, actually, they are studios in some cases, like Amazon. For example, Amazon and MGM are a studio. Netflix technically you class them as a studio. They call themselves Netflix Studios.
Yeah.
Apple definitely consider themselves to be I mean, they've done great work. They've done some interesting work. I mean, you look at Argyle. Argyle made absolutely no money in the box office, the Matthew Vaughn film. But Apple don't care because actually the watch rate on Apple TV was off the charts. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. Apple buys content. They make content. I mean, Apple's just so big. Same with Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. They have the ability. I feel like Amazon took themselves for granted. I mean, they have the money. Their production value didn't seem as good as, say, Netflix and Apple. Apple is a technology company, so their production value on a lot of their content, not a lot of it, it's all of it, is very, very good, right? It's like, I mean, we say that all the time on the show. And Netflix, I feel like with their full-length features, even their series that they come is high production value, one of the best. And I feel like they were one of the first, one of the first to produce HDR streaming very, very well. They knew how to light it. They knew how to shoot it, you know what I mean, to get it so that it looked like it was like, wow, this looks really, really good. Where you'd go and watch something on HBO or you'd go on Amazon or something like that. This was before Apple TV even existed. You'd be like, oh, that doesn't look good at all. If it was, washed out, or it just didn't have the same pop that you'd expect from HDR. Granted, it's streaming, but they knew that Netflix seemed to know their limitations, and they knew how to work within them to get the most out of it. And Apple seems to be doing the same thing now.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming of age. They are literally, though. I mean, you look at Netflix. I mean, they effectively defined the standard for streaming in HDR. I mean, their spec is very, very rigid. But I mean, Netflix are fascinating. I mean, have you seen Carry On?
Not yet. No.
It's hysterical because in the UK, if you say Carry On to anybody, they think of a series of films that are comedies that were made in the 60s and 70s. That were Carry On comedies. So when I saw it, I thought it was something to do with Carry On. So that was the most watched film over Christmas, and I couldn't believe it. I think it's like in its first 24 hours, it had something like 50 million views. I mean, that's staggering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve saw it, I think, and he even referenced that as well. It's like that. I think Steve saw it. I think he referenced the show you were saying in the UK and stuff. Yeah. But it's the holidays. You put something out and you're going to get your clicks. A lot of people have Netflix, around the world. And, how was it though? What did you think? Was it worth the 50 million clicks?
No, it was dreadful.
See?
I mean, I love it. I mean, yeah, again, I mean, it's the fantasy thing now, because it's like all set in an airport. And it's one of those strange fantasy luggage machines that don't exist at airports, where the luggage is going around on loads of carousels. And what is interesting is they end up on the ground, the basement of this, where this luggage is going through, because they're looking for a bomb. And it's like, it's damp and wet and there's water everywhere. And it's like, why would it be damp, wet and have water everywhere if this is where everybody's luggage would be?
Yeah.
It's like, surely they should have fixed this. It's like, why would it be pools of water around where people's luggage is? You know?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I was very disappointed. I was expecting it to be better than it was. It's because I watched it and I was like, okay, because I don't have a lot of time sometimes to watch stuff, so I watched it, and then I had some more. I thought, okay, I'll watch something else, and then I watched *Scent of a Woman*, which was also on Netflix, the classic Al Pacino film.
Yeah. Hoo-ha.
And that to me was pure magic, and it's like. But that's the beauty of some of these streaming platforms. You can watch something and go, oh, it's not very good. And then literally just find something that's,
cleanse the palate. Yeah.
And it's like *Scent of the Woman. And it's I forgot how long. *Scent of the Woman* is over 2 hours. It's like 2 hours, 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, back then, that was a long time.
Yeah. But
I have that on Laserdisc.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's effortless, but it's effortless to watch. But it's like, it's Martin Brest. I mean, Martin Brest is a great film director. He did the film. What was the film he was famous for? The one with Robert De Niro and what's his name on? Is it Midnight Run? Was it called?
Midnight Run with what do you call it?
But I remember it's funny because we're going to go full circle here because, like, literally, we started off by talking about short films, and Martin Brest went to NYU Film School. And when I taught at NYU Film School, they showed me, because they used to show it to all the students because they show past students' work. They showed his short film, and it's really funny because it's actually not a bad film, but it's about a terrorist attack on the Empire State Building, and he couldn't afford to build a model of the Empire State Building. So he has in this film, he has like a cheap gift shop model of the Empire State Building, and there's a firecracker in it which blows it up.
Oh, jeez.
But it sort of works. It sort of works. And actually, if you watch The Brutalist, the openings of The Brutalist always pays homage to that. So I'm not sure if Brady was referencing Martin Brest's short film from NYU days, that literally, the opening of Brutalist, you have a cheap, because they're supposed to be arriving at Ellis Island, and obviously the whole film was shot in Hungary. You're supposed to have this, like the Statue of Liberty, and have this cheap gift shop knockoff being waved around in front of the camera, showing that they're arriving at Ellis Island. And it sort of works because it works because it just looks so bad. It actually looks quite good. And it's the same with Martin Brest's short film that he did. That this is like, Empire State Building being blown up as a gift shop, novelty. But yeah, no, going back, *Scent of the Woman*, *Midnight Run*. I'm trying to think what else Martin Brest did.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, *Beverly Hills Cop*. Yes, there you go.
I just pulled them up. I don't know that off the top of my head. I just pulled it up on IMDb. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, *Beverly Hills Cop*. Who did Meet Joe Black?
He did.
He did, yeah. I thought, I loved Meet Joe Black. Meet Joe Black I thought it was him. Meet Joe Black got absolutely hammered, and it's a very beautiful film. I mean, it's based on a stage play called "The Devil Takes a Holiday."
Okay.
And it's it just works really well. And it's typical sort of like critics ganging up and going, "Oh, it's not very good." Well, actually, I watched it and I thought it was lovely. It was a lovely film.
I honestly don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, well, it's probably.
I don't think I've seen it. It's 98. Yeah, it came out in 98. It's 3 hours.
Yes. Well, that was
Holy
the thing. So it got hammered by the critics for being so long, and I can't remember. There's a lot of things. It's it's a light-hearted romantic comedy, and it's it's actually very good.
Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah. Well, he basically, what it is Anthony Hopkins is the only one who knows that Joe Black is the devil, and he's here to take. He's not the devil. He's death. So the thing's called Death Takes a Holiday, and he's death. So basically, Anthony Hopkins is the only one who knows he's death, and he basically begs him to give him time to sort stuff out, and in the process, he falls in love with Anthony Hopkins' daughter, which is a bit odd that Death would actually fall in love with.
Yeah. The synopsis is Death, who takes the form of a young man killed in an accident, asks a media mogul to act as his guide to teach him about life on Earth, and in the process, he falls in love with the mogul's daughter.
But it was actually
Interesting. Interesting.
fantastical premise, but actually it worked quite well. And by the end of it, I mean, you're just rooting for them to get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though he's deaf. Just like,
Even though, yeah. Well, nobody's perfect.
yeah. Yeah, but it's Beverly Hills Cop. Because I love Beverly Hills Cop. I think that's very good. Beverly Hills Cop 2 is my favorite that my friend Tony Scott directed, or the late Tony Scott directed. Beverly Hills Cop 3 was a TV movie at the best of things, directed by John Landis. And then you've got the thing they rebooted on Netflix, wasn't it? The Beverly Hills Cop, whatever it's called. The Netflix.
Yeah, the late 4, but it's the latest one or whatever. And they actually make fun of Beverly Hills Cop 3 in it. There's a line in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually quite, I mean, it's a TV movie. If you take it for what it is, which is basically not very good, it's actually quite fun to watch. But it's nowhere near the same as, Beverly Hills Cop or Beverly Hills Cop 2. Beverly Hills Cop 2 is very, very dark. I mean, only Tony could have taken it to the level that it was at, because some of the scenes are just not funny because it's actually quite cruel.
Which one? Like, I don't see it that way. I find that like it's hysterical. I don't see it as dark. Or do you say they just went to be funny? They went to not too far, but they went further than maybe.
Well, the body count is over the top, and when they shoot people, it's usually quite graphic and very quite, and I seem to remember they shoot some guy in the legs, and he's he literally stumbling along, and then they shoot him in the legs some more, and it's just like, well, yeah, you just been cruel to somebody here, but it's got.
I didn't pay attention to that part. I just thought it was funny because, and isn't that part of it like what it was for? What's his name? Judge Reinhold, Billy.
Yeah,
his character. Like all of a sudden, like Billy, we got to talk because of his guns.
Yeah,
he loved his guns and everything. So they went in that direction a little bit. But I felt like Beverly Hills Cop was like Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills Cop 2 is like Terminator and Terminator 2. It's like, here's the movie without like the same budget and everything. And here we have some success. So now we're going to give you a bigger budgeted version of that movie.
Same thing, yeah. We're just going to reboot. We're going to Yeah, I mean, literally, if you think about the Terminator, it's the same story over and over again. It's like literally the past comes back to stop the future. Sorry, the future comes back to stop the past. The paradox thing. I mean, it's very clever, and you can sit there and forever and a day and think about the whole thing. But I mean, as I said, we go back again. It's like Terminator 2, yet again another film that defined the reason we're talking about home cinema. I mean, the disc, the collectible of that. I mean, it still sells for a large amount of money on eBay. The Laserdisc version of Terminator 2, the Criterion version. Yeah. With the fully steel front box. Because I mean, I think back in the day it was like what, $250?
Probably, yeah. I never owned that one. Never got that. I had the widescreen, still have it. The widescreen version, special edition, to be able to, because that was the only place you could get the special edition back then, because they didn't have it on VHS. And to be able to get the extended cut, right?
That was the thing, wasn't it? Is Laserdisc offered you the widescreen version. Yeah. It offered you a different cut version, and also
the pan and scan. You could buy the pan and scan or the widescreen.
Yeah, and then also gave you commentaries, which was even more.
Yes. It took advantage of the secondary audio, so you could listen to the audio commentary throughout, which you could never. There was no other format at the time that could do that.
Because I really sort of, I never really was into Laserdisc, but I sort of, a friend of mine who was a director who came out to LA, a guy called Paul Anderson, who directed Mortal Kombat and went on to do Alien versus Predator. But I remember when he first moved to LA, he had this apartment, and all he had in his apartment was a mattress a 26-inch television and a Laserdisc player. And we used to sit there watching movies like 24/7. Like,
Yeah. It's like, that's what I had, a 27-inch until I got, till I could upgrade. I bought my Laserdisc player first, and I only had a 27-inch television. And then when I saved up the money to get the new TV, I got a 32-inch Sony Trinitron. I was like, whoa. And like, that was, back then, 32-inch was the like considered home theater. All right, now you've got a home theater size screen. And it was letterboxed. So you're taking up that 32-inch 4x3 screen and you turn it into a letterbox, which is this tiny little screen. And you're like, look at the quality.
Well, that was the thing. So everyone was going, you're seeing more of the picture. They're going, no, you're not. Why am I only seeing a slat? It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, no, we're just seeing a slat across the screen. It's like, oh, you could, yeah, some people just couldn't be convinced.
Yeah, it's 480 lines of resolution on the 4x3 screen, but the 480 was the vertical. And if you throw in you add in the black bars, you're looking at probably maybe 280 lines of picture.
That is the exact number. If it's a 235 image on a thing, it'd be 280 lines of that resolution.
And the rest is black bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah, pay a lot of money for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that's all we had.
Yeah, but that to me was. But I mean, I used to have for example, Paul used to go around to Paul's, and we used to sit there, with a 6-pack and popcorn or whatever else we used to buy, and beef jerky, and just sit there and just watch one film after the other for like a marathon of about, day in, day out, and day and night. It was fascinating times. I remember at the time because Paul never really had a girlfriend back then, and it's like he never could really speak to women. But now he's married to Mira Jovovich. It's like, how did that happen?
I mean, back then, I look back at everything that we went through, like I've said a million times on the show, everything we went through back then and compare it to now. And I mean, Todd and I have been saying for a while, Todd Anderson and I, like, this has to be like the golden age of home theater. Has to be.
Yeah. No, I think physical media is in there's so much, last year, so much physical media came out and so many special editions came out. And it got to a point last year where literally you couldn't get a film out because you couldn't book the time to get it replicated. There wasn't enough capacity to replicate all the stuff that needed to be done, which is why people kept complaining because films kept getting pushed back and back. And it's like, well, why is it getting pushed back? Is this the death of physical media? It's like, no, there just isn't enough people to make the discs.
Yeah. But I mean, home theater itself, as people have been saying, is dying, but it's like, I think this is like the goal. Everything that we have access to. You think of the entire market of it, of how great our theaters are compared to where they were. It's never been better, and it's only improving. It's like some might say we might plateau a little bit, but I don't know. Doesn't that mean if you plateaued, isn't that the golden age? Right? Yeah. You've reached pinnacle.
But I mean, you look at it, and I say, is it dying? It's like, what do they mean? Is it dying? I mean, it's still making billions of dollars every year. And it's just a lot more competition now. You think about it, you got Facebook, you got Instagram, and then you got all sorts of other, methods of like your time. You got a myriad of things like dating apps that are taking up lots of people's money and, disposable income. So if you divide your leisure time across the whole thing, it's punching pretty well above its weight if you think about it. Home cinema.
It again, like we said earlier, it's a niche market, but I feel like it's going really strong. I think for people that see it as dying, I think they've just been in it so long and they just want more people, right? You know what I mean? Like they've been around long enough that they're like, it doesn't seem like we're getting a lot of new people anymore.
Well, yeah.
Because you don't see them because you're not new anymore,
Yeah. Well, so if you go to any of these conventions or stuff, yeah, it is a lot of old guys because literally they were in it in the 90s and they're still in it now and they're probably just about to retire. And it's like all the new guys have gone to things like Facebook and, Instagram and Netflix and stuff like that. That's it's just the way the things evolve. But I mean, if you look at there's an awful lot of young independent disc labels that are run by people in their 30s. And there's a good market there. It's like all these things. It's like it depends on how much money you want to make. When the home entertainment market was making 20 billion a year, okay, but then that's not the same now. If you look at the golden age of VHS, I mean, literally they were selling by you couldn't move them fast enough. Well, now it's a different market. It's it's mainly online. So all the physical media that you used to have, it's just shifted. All that happens, the money hasn't gone away. It's just shifted into different areas.
Right. It evolved to something else, and the quality got better.
Yeah. And I mean, people don't appreciate that things like Instagram and Facebook actually form part of their leisure time. Yeah, because people spend like an hour, 2 hours, just
minimum.
Yeah, minimum. I know some people that literally, like, every time their phone vibrates, they keep looking at it in case, like, obviously something exciting has just happened, and it's like, no, it's just nothing particularly that interesting, but it's like the hits they're getting from, like, I'm getting loads of likes. I must admit, it is quite addictive when you get loads of likes on something, and it's like, oh, look,
I shut off. I shut off all my alerts and stuff on my social media. And then I just go on and look later. It's like it gets to be so distracting from everything else. Like you said, it's like you'd be out and gets to, even my email, I shut all of that. I get no alerts on anything, emails, social medias, anything. Texts, I get my texts, but that's it. Everything else, I have to actually actively open the app and look and see what it has. So, and phone calls. I'll take a phone call.
Phone calls. It's really weird. It's like
that's archaic now, John.
I had to phone somebody up the other day, and it's like, because normally it's like I'm talking to them either on WhatsApp or Teams or any of the other multitude of things, and it's like, you phone them up, you type a number in, and it's like,
oh yeah.
It was a weird experience. It's like, okay, but it's our leisure time is so now stretched across so many things. As I said, it's like the thing that which a lot of people need to look at is actually leisure time. Particularly, an awful lot of people are single. Is that dating apps take up a huge amount of disposable income and time. And most people don't factor those into the whole leisure time experience. How long are people swiping left and right? I mean, wow. I'll tell you a story. I went for a endoscope, and like I was like sitting there, and the guy was like, doing it, and I was like, sort of trussed up. And I looked across, and he was doing. So I said, "How's it going?" He said, "Oh, it's fine." And I said, well, how long is it going to be? Oh, I don't know. It's probably just a bit longer. We're nearly there. I said, well, if you were paying a bit more attention and weren't swiping right, you know exactly what was going on. He was like sitting there on Tinder at the time, like,
oh my God.
It's like, great. It's like, pay attention to what you're doing. It's like, careful where the tube's going.
Oh, jeez. God. That's fantastic.
It's like, I'm hoping you're swiping right on the right thing here and not like,
Oh God. Yeah. Welcome to Brightside Home Theater. Great. Yes. That's great. Oh my God. That's awesome. We got to wrap up on that one.
Yes.
Go out on a high note.
On a high note, because that leads quite nicely into the Big Bang Theory, because that's, if you remember, Mrs. Wallowitz's thing about, if you want to see a horror film, I'll show you my mother's endoscope.
Yeah. Oh God, that's great.
Give you a
Great.
spoiler: a prune pip. Was it a prune? A prune pip is the big thing.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we didn't even talk any Big Bang Theory. Nope.
I've been watching it again. I still watch it at
I
lunchtime.
watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the series.
I used it in the show the other day, like yesterday. I
Okay.
used a clip of it. It was my motivation to come down and watch Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
The episode with James Earl Jones.
Yes.
And he sat there and he's like, I was blown away. He was awesome in that episode too. So funny.
Well, that's the one where Sheldon just can't he can't get a ticket for Comic-Con, so he decides to create his own.
His own. Yeah.
Yeah.
He stalks James Earl Jones by going, he's like, I'm going to my favorite restaurant. And he looks back on Twitter or something like that from 4 years earlier. And he's like, he's going to be there. And he walks right up to him in the restaurant. It was so great. He's like, James Earl Jones, like, I bet you're a Star Wars fan. And he's like, I am. And he goes,
I am
too. So great.
I've got a Lion King residual check that's burning a hole in my pocket.
Yeah. He wanted to take him to Tijuana.
And they go and prank Carrie Fisher.
Yeah. Yep. They got Carrie Fisher on the show. Yeah. They rang her doorbell and took off or whatever. Big dog ditch. I know it's you, James. So great. So great.
It's legendary. It's like literally, I think from series 2 probably to about series 8 is probably the best.
Yeah.
They were like the golden episodes.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, I actually watched the other day because I decided to watch it again, was 2.5 Men. Because 2.5 Men is the same producer and the same writing team. And actually, at some point, they're overlapping because if you notice, they're using the same sets because the coffee shop is the same set.
Is it really?
Yes.
I got to check that out. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
The coffee shop they go to in 2.5 Men, the coffee shop where actually he goes on the first date with Amy Farrah Fowler is the same set.
Oh, wow.
And also, if you watch them, you actually notice they also recycle some of the same lines and dialogue as well.
Well, and Martin, yeah, Charlie Sheen was in an episode of Big Bang when he's like, who was it?
Kuthapali he goes, I'm in People magazine, and he just turns around and goes, call me when you're on the cover.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Call me when you're on the cover. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah.
Legendary series, but I mean, yeah, I don't know if you've watched Young Sheldon. I just can't get into Young Sheldon. I don't know what it is.
I did at the beginning, and you wanted to see a little bit of like how they crossed it over or what they did there. And it's like, it is pretty cool to see every now and then. I'll see an episode or I'll like scan across it and I'll watch it. And you get the references. It's voiced over by him.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing though that puts me off though, is because you get future snippets of stuff that you've never seen in the Big Bang, where he says, "Oh yes, like when my wife gave birth to our twins." And it's like, well, obviously that's never been covered in the Big Bang Theory. So you're hearing stuff from,
right?
Yeah, and you wonder whether they all did go their separate ways, and they only ever turn up for birthdays and anniversaries, and
yeah. You mean when Big Bang wrapped up?
Yes,
and you'd see like that because they ended it kind of like Cheers.
Yeah.
Right. I remember when Cheers ended and it was like, what are they going to do? How are they going to do this? And they ended it in a way that was kind of, I believe it was like, unique at the time for a show or series to end where it's just like, oh, wait, it's still going to go on, but we're just not going to be watching anymore. Right. And that's kind of how they ended. It's like Big Bang wrapped up with him getting, him finally getting his Nobel Prize. But then they end the show with them all back to where they normally are, sitting around and eating at the table, eating while watching TV. Yeah. Which I thought that's one of the iconic things of that show that I thought captivated like pop culture. Like a lot of people had gone away from, like you go back to television shows before. It was like everybody came home, 5:00 dinner. You no TV, no nothing. You sat down, had dinner, and then it was Big Bang Theory came along and it showed you like TV. Everybody gathered in front of the televisions now. I'm not saying they're the ones that caused it, but they're one of the first ones to emphasize like this is how things are done now.
I can't remember what you have to type in. But if you go to YouTube, you can actually find there's a documentary about the pilot original pilot for the Big Bang Theory, and it's totally different. It's
yeah. You've told me that, and like Sheldon used to be like a.
Yeah, it's a bit more like 2.5 Men. It's like literally they're all. It's like a particularly well. Actually, it sort of implies it in the first ever episode. Because if you remember where they're going to go sell their sperm.
Yeah. It's the opening scene.
Yeah. And he turns around and he goes, well, you do it like a pro. And it's like, well, later on, Sheldon has implied he has no sexuality. So it's like, why would he?
Right. Yeah. Not interested in it at all. Nothing. Yeah, exactly. So they kind of like tweaked those characters, obviously for the better, because you already, it was a very successful show. I liked it for the idea, even the part of the pop culture part of comic book stores.
Yes.
I used to tell people, like, I remember people would be like, do they still have comic book stores? I'm like, yes. My friend owns one. John was owning one at the time, Actually, at the start of the show, John didn't own one, but it's like comic book stores. A lot of people didn't even know those still existed. Yeah. And I thought it brought awareness to that.
But that's the thing. It's like literally owning a comic book store is what it also demonstrated was the community, because it was a community again. It's like everybody in the comic book store knew each other. You had Captain Sweatpants.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the guy who owned the comic book store? Because his character Stuart, because Stuart Blue, wasn't it? That was his full name, Stuart Blue. Because I can't remember what it. But these characters became bigger and bigger and more influential in the whole thing.
Yeah,
that was more of the sort of interesting part of the whole thing. Is how that developed, and he was quite an interesting character, and he sort of rounded it out. But if you still look at it, it's like literally Sheldon became the star of it, but he wasn't. Leonard was originally the star, and actually, Leonard is just the stooge to Sheldon.
Yeah. It's you have the Leonard and Penny dynamic is what the show was supposed to be based on, and then Sheldon kind of stole the show, but you still had the Leonard and Penny dynamic, so that's what I think made it doubly successful. Right. It just built on that success where you had more than just this, awkward, kind of like, Chuck, the show Chuck was kind of based on the Leonard and Penny situation, like a nerd and a blonde bombshell. Right. And now this is, but that was an action hour-long thriller, which I love that show too. And then you have Big Bang Theory where it's like, okay, you have the unlikely pair, and then what he did with Sheldon is amazing.
But what is fascinating is that the two, Penny and Leonard, in real life were dating. I think for at least
at one point, after I think after season 1, I think, or something like that, during season 1 for a few seasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll probably help the dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah.
It's what I haven't really seen any of them do anything since. She did the stewardess.
What did she do? It was that she did the one. She's done a couple of things.
Yeah, the only one who's really ever done anything. The woman who plays Amy Farrah Fowler was it Jeopardy?
Jeopardy.
Yeah. But don't forget, what is I always find fascinating is that they make several references to Blossom beforehand. The fact that the girl who played Blossom became a neurosurgeon. Well, that's her because she was Blossom.
Yeah, and she's a neurosurgeon. She is literal genius.
Yeah, in real life, yes.
In real life, yeah. Kaylee Cuoco actually she produces all of her stuff too. She's been quite successful. At what she does. What's his name? Played Leonard. He's kind of a recluse a little bit. Like he kind of keeps quiet, but he does stuff, but he's always been that way.
Probably because, but you think about it though, because like the last couple of series, they were all getting $1 million an episode. So they've probably made so much money. They don't.
Yeah. And now they've kind of been, I don't want to say typecast, but they're like, all right, now what do we do? Yeah. Kind of like the Seinfeld people, where did they go from there? You never, you're on one of the most successful shows of all time. It's hard to
Yeah.
You could go out and you could have a successful career afterwards, but it's gonna pale in comparison to Big Bang Theory, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, it's a bit like what's his name, Kelsey Graham, who played Fraser. He can never play anything else other than Fraser.
oh, I know, yeah, and he's back to playing Frasier again.
Yeah, because he couldn't do anything else. Yeah, and unfortunately, the reboot of it was not very funny.
No, I watched a few. I love Frasier too. I love that show. I watched the reboot a little bit, but it was like, all right. I
Well, they
didn't stick with
replaced
it.
Niles, didn't they, with what's his name, the British actor who he didn't really work.
I didn't even get that far into it. I didn't even see him bring Niles in.
Yeah, well, Niles isn't in it. It's literally he's replaced by what the part.
Oh, okay. It's not somebody playing Niles. It's just another. Yeah, because it's in Boston now. It's back in Boston.
Yeah, it's another guy they brought in who's basically because like Niles was like the foil for Fraser.
Right.
I mean, my favorite episode of all time of Fraser is when they're at is it the health spa, and they believe there's a better room behind a better room.
Oh my God, that's the epitome of home theater.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that's human. Oh my God, John, I love that episode too. I reference it all the time with people. I'm like, just when you get to where you think you want to be, you're like, but what's over there? What's over there? Like you can't wait to get there. Then you're there, and all you want to do is get to the next place. And that's exactly. Oh, I love that episode.
And then eventually they get to the ultimate door, and they end up on the street.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, what's back there? And it's like, it's literally the sidewalk. They're in an alley or whatever. You're like, whoops.
They're standing there in a towel on the sidewalk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I reference that all the time. It's so funny.
On that note, I think Fraser, I think that's where we should call it a day.
There we go. I know. John, how late is it over there right now? What are you at?
It's 2:10.
Jeez, John. Come on. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, no,
I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm used to staying up late. I mean, it's only, what is it? It's 6 minutes past 6 in LA at the moment. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, it's only 9:03 here. So there you go.
Just quickly, the thing I learned very quickly, though, about LA is that literally everybody gets to work at 6 in the morning and goes home at about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Oh.
Most people in LA are in bed by 8 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah. Because they
start so early. Yeah.
They start so early.
Is that because they're on the West Coast and the East Coast is already going? So they're kind of like in.
Yeah. They're trying to catch up. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
So anyway,
all right. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate the time. Thanks for the Oscar stuff, the Oscar the award season.
Let's see what wins. Let's see how the cards play, and hopefully, it'll be a great testament to LA and how great LA is, and it'll be the phoenix from the ashes because
there we go.
It's LA is not in a great place at the moment, and it needs all the love it can get. So
yeah, oh yeah, yep. So all right, thanks, John. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back later this afternoon with the live show. Till then, you know what you got to do.
Go push play. What he said.
Hey, Fred. This has been a Hey Fred production with theme music by Jeff Bernhardt and Throne Vault Productions.